In this video, I'll tell you how you can fix wrong information on a Form I-94. Hi, I'm Dustin Saldarriaga, an immigration lawyer with Scott Legal PC in New York City. But before diving in, please take a moment to subscribe. By doing so, you'll stay updated on our firm's most current and trustworthy information about U.S. immigration, including options to visit, work, or live in the United States. Since the I-94 is the most important document when it comes to proving your status in the U.S. and whether you've overstayed, it's important to take a look at your I-94 and to fix any mistakes. So, what is the Form I-94 and why is it such a big deal? Each time you enter the United States, you're issued a Form I-94. There are only a few exceptions to this rule. For example, certain Canadians are not issued an I-94. But let's set these exceptions aside. Also, USCIS can issue a Form I-94 if you apply to change or extend your status from inside the US. This video will only focus on the I-94 that's issued when you enter the US by US Customs and Border Protection, or CBP. For those entering the US, the I-94 is the document that defines what you're allowed to do in the US and for how long. What you're allowed to do is defined on the I-94 by your class of admission. The class of admission is also called your status. For example, if you enter the US on a B2 visitor visa to visit Disney World, your I-94 will show your class of admission, or status, as B2. If you enter the US as a student, the I-94 will show your status as F1. If you enter as the spouse of an E2 investor, your I-94 will show your status as E2S. B2 status allows you to visit, but does not allow you to work or study. F1 status does allow you to study. And E2S status allows you to start working immediately upon entering. So with these three examples, B2, F1, and E2S, you start to see how the status that's printed on the I-94 really does define what you can and can't do while you're in the US. Similarly, the admit until date that's printed on the I-94 is also critical. It defines how long you can stay in the US. If you don't leave before the admit until date on the I-94, you'll begin to accrue unlawful presence, unless you've applied to extend, change, or adjust your status with USCIS. Unlawful presence is bad and should be avoided. If you accrue enough unlawful presence, you could be barred from re-entering the United States. Since the I-94 defines what you can do in the US and when you're required to leave, it's important to always look at your I-94 each and every time you enter the United States. Check what your status is and add to your calendar the date you're required to leave by. When you review your I-94, also check to make sure that the information on it is correct. For example, if you're given the wrong status, you could be limited in what you can do in the US, and you could be penalized if you engage in activities that aren't authorized by the status that's printed on your I-94. Similarly, the I-94 might have an incorrect admit until date, which could mean that your stay in the US will be much shorter than is typical of the status you've been given. Remember that the information on the I-94 is usually controlling, even if it's wrong. It's worth mentioning that the government makes mistakes on I-94 forms all the time. So make sure to check yours. How do you do that? Fortunately, these days, the I-94 is usually digital, so you can check it online. Below, we'll add the link to the website where you can check your I-94. You just enter on the CBP website your first and last name, birth date, passport number, and country of citizenship, and voila, you have your most recent I-94. So let's say you visit the CBP website and enter that information, and you see that there's a mistake on your I-94. What are your next steps? First, you need to ask whether the mistake is really a mistake. For example, if your I-94 shows that you have the wrong status, that is very likely a mistake. But if you notice that your admit until date seems too soon, that might have been a deliberate choice by the border officer, who has the discretion to limit the length of stay based on your activities. For example, even though an entry on a B2 visa can give you status for 6 months, you might not get the full 6 months if you're only entering to visit Disney World for 1 week. On the other hand, if you entered with the rest of your family to visit Disney World and everyone else got 6 months of status and you only got 1 week, there is an argument to be made that this was a mistake. So once you've determined that there is actually a mistake on your I-94, how do you fix it? One option is to contact the CBP deferred inspection site that's nearest to the airport, border crossing, or other port of entry that you used on your most recent entry. You can find the contact information for the deferred inspection site on CBP's website. We'll include a link to that below. For most locations listed on the website, you'll see a line that says I-94 correction instructions with an email address or phone number. When you reach out to that email address or phone number, you should be ready to explain the date of your most recent entry, where you entered, the airport or other port of entry, and the mistake you're asking them to correct. Specifically, explain how you know there was a mistake. For example, you entered on an E2 spouse visa, so you should have been given E2S status. Or you specifically told the officer that you would be traveling with your family for the entire visit, so they should have given you the same status for the same length of time as your other family members. If you can attach an image supporting your argument, such as a photo of your I-94 and visa, do that. CBP also provides a second way to request a correction on an I-94. Simply visit CBP's online portal, which we'll link to below. On the Topic drop-down menu, choose I-94 Traveler Compliance, and under Applicable Issue, you can choose Issue with my I-94 or Travel History. Then you can include a detailed description of the mistake, and you can upload any relevant documents, such as your passport stamp, visa, and I-94. Usually there's no downside to taking both of the steps we just described at the same time, so that might be your best option. After CBP has informed you that your I-94 has been corrected, don't celebrate just yet. First, go back to the CBP website, take a look at your most recent I-94, and make sure that the mistake has been fixed. It might take a few hours for the change to take effect, so give it a day or two. If the correction isn't showing up in that time, you might want to reach out to CBP once again to make sure they actually made the change. We hope this video was helpful. If it was, please click the like and subscribe buttons below to stay updated on future videos about visa options and travel to the US. Thank you for watching.